You are learning Power BI and you want to learn advanced concepts. You want to know how to apply the concept you have learned as a beginner in Power BI, then this is the series for you. So watch this complete series, know how various concepts can be applied to achieve different results. Subscribe to the channel. Hello and welcome to another video of Abstract Thesis series, and in today's video we are going to discuss incremental setting. How do we set up an incremental ETL in Power BI, and how can we load data, more data on Power BI service, how this implementation is going to be there when we use deployment pipeline in PPU and premium workspaces. So let's begin our journey. But before we begin, I'm going to point you to one document and I'm going to provide the link in the description also. You can search for Power BI Incremental Refresh and you will come across this Incremental Refresh overview. And it has given the setting, refresh setting and everything. But the most important thing which you should use is refer to this one is create parameters. And read this. When configuring the incremental refresh in Power BI desktop, you create two Power Query date time parameters with reserved case sensitive names range start and range end. These parameters defined in the manage parameters dialog in the Power Query editor are initially used to filter the data loaded into the Power BI desktop model table to include those rows with the date time with that period. After the model is published to the service, range start and range end is overwritten automatically by Power BI service. Okay, so we are going to see this. So, and then what you need to do once you define these variable, you need to do a custom filter setting that has been given here. Then how do you define your incremental strategy that has been given there? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my journey by taking data from a Power BI data flow on my Power BI desktop. So I'm going to go and get data from a Power BI data flow. I already set up data flow and I'll try to take it from the train. If it doesn't have data, then we will take it from somewhere else. And I'll take it the sales table. Let me check. Does it have a data? Yes, it has a data, and I'll say load. So data is getting loaded. I got 30,000 rows and I can go and show it to you. Here the data, you can see data and you can also see how many rows it has. Now I go to the home tab and I go to transform data, which is Power Query, and as per the documentation we need to create two variables, range start, range end, case sensitive variables, and we need to apply it is on a date time field. So first of all, when I look at my field, which is date type, not date time type, so I go and convert my sales table date to date time. So now I have a date time field. Now I go to now manage parameters, which is available under the home tab, manage parameters. I go and create a new parameter, m parameter or Power Query parameter, range start, no gap here, range start this. Then choose the data type, date time, that's really important, any value, and I'm going to choose this 2019-01-01. okay, and I'll show you what data I have, because I have data from 2018 and I need to show you, because when I apply the filter, it's going to filter the data. Then I again go to the manage parameters. I actually don't need to say okay, I can continuously create it without doing that. Okay, and I say range, and again case sensitive, it need to be date time, and I need to give a date 2019-12-31, and it's going to correct it. So it's going to correct the format. Okay, so now I have these two variables. I'm not applying it right now. I say close and apply. I go back and I want to show you the data which I have, because once I apply the filter, I need to show you how many rows I have. So I just let me sort it ascending. I have data from 2018 13th October and sort descending till 3rd October. So this is my data, and remember this now, because I'm going to go and apply the filters now which has been suggested in the documentation. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the sales date, right click here, and I'll click on this arrow, basically date time filters, and I go to click on the custom filter. Once I click on the custom filter, and I need to create, now one can be less than equal to or less than, then other, only one can have equal to. Okay, so I say is on and after, so equal to I'm using after or equal to parameter range start, but in the end I'll say before, strictly before, not equal to. Here I'm not going to use equal to on both the sides, don't use equal to on both the sides, and I'm going to say range and I say okay. Now we have done with this setting. Now this is the setting which you need supposed to do here. You have a filter row here, and when I say now close and apply, it's going to load the data again, and it has loaded only 19,000 rows. So we don't have data for 2018. And if I go here and if I put this into a visual, so let's say I put sales date, and I put, let's say, quantity along with that, and I say sort ascending or sort descending, whatever I do, you will not see any data beyond 2000, this one. And let me increase the size little bit so that you can see it. So size, let me increase it to 15. Okay, now you can see 2019 is the place where we have data. Now let's save this file, and we'll call it so we have saved our incremental setting file, and so we defined the variable and we controlled range start range, and now we need to go to Power BI service and run a incremental or run the data or schedule the data to run the data refresh and see how we are going to get the data. But before that, we need to do a setup. What setup? Incremental setup. So we right click here and we say incremental refresh. Now it says unable to confirm that M query can be folded. It's not recommended to use incremental. So it's not able to confirm right now if it's M queries folded or not. You have to make sure that M queries are getting folded. If they are not getting folded, then you might not have best of your incremental ETL. So right now we are going to go ahead with this one. We are not going to debug into the issue and start archiving data. So now this is really important because when you go back and you have an access to the Azure and list services, or basically you look at the data model in the SQL Server Management Studio, and you look this model as a tabular model, or maybe go and look the data as a tabular model on the back end, the published model, then you will be able to see these partitions and you will realize the difference when you say here, because see, the same thing I can do by days, month, quarter and years. It's going to make a difference. And what I'm going to say is I want to on or before, how many start archiving. So right now, remember my data is in 2018, which is almost around 5 years back. So 5 years, 4 quarter, 20. So I'm going to take roughly 24 quarters of data here, so that I need to have 24 quarters of data. And incrementally refresh, I'll say 1 month incrementally refresh. So they should archive the data for this one and incrementally refresh this thing. Only refresh complete months. We can use this, so it will only refresh the complete months and detect data changes. If we have a variables which can detect the data changes, we can use that. Right now I will keep the settings pretty simple and I'll say apply. So if those settings are correct, only then this setting is going to apply. Again, we are going to save the file. So now we have defined the incremental variable. We have set the incremental refresh settings also. Now we are going to say publish. And I'm going to publish it right now in a non-premium workspace, which is test1 workspace. Let me see, do I have access to that? Test1 workspace, select. And I'll say got it. Now I go back to Power BI service. I'm going to choose Power BI service. I opened the app.powerbi.com. I logged in here. Test is not showing anything, but let me refresh. It's going to show me this report as well as this data set right now. Now data set has a refresh button here, and it has settings to refresh the data. Okay, and the data is coming from this sales data flow only. Fine. Now if you remember, initially I have more rows, but when I configured it, I have lesser number of rows, and you can see if I do the data changes here, it's only showing me data for 2019. Okay, now I have an option that I schedule an incremental refresh and wait for it, so and then see it. So let me do one thing. Let me set up the incremental refresh and pause this video to wait, let it complete. But it's going to happen at the next, after next 30 minutes time, which is going to happen. So what I'm going to do is, instead of doing that, I'm going to manually do a refresh and check it out. So first refresh, whenever I do, it should be the initial refresh to load the complete data, and post that I should get the incremental. So we'll set up the incremental, and then we'll come back and manually refresh it. To do the incremental setting, you have to go to the settings. First thing, if it requires a gateway connection, you need to set up the gateway connection. If it's not requiring right now, it's not showing it required gateway connection. If it requires, you have to give. Then second is data source credential. This is typically for the online one, because I've used Power BI data flow, and that's the reason I have used Power BI data flow. So I don't have to use a gateway. I only need the online sources. So I am able to do, I don't need here. If you go to the parameter, if you have set up your parameters correctly, you are not going to see range start and range end. Anything other than that, you should be able to see here, other than those two. And then you say schedule refresh, and I'm going to say on, and I'm going to say in my own time zone, add another time, and I'll say, let's say 12:30 p.m. my time, and I'll say apply. Okay, so now it has been set up. In case, so very simple thing is, you are just doing the refresh setting, and it's going to refresh. We don't have a new data, so it's not definitely not going to load it. So the only thing which we need right now is what happens when we refresh this data. So we go to the test one data set, and when we will try to refresh it, so we go here and we say we go to the data set and we refresh it by clicking refresh now. So my refresh on the test environment has finished, and I actually clicked on manual refresh as well as the schedule refresh was scheduled, and all of them has finished. They were not visible because of caching reason at that time. But if I go to the setting and refresh history, now I check, I can see the on demand and the schedule refresh is finished. Now once the refresh has been finished here, and we have to go here and look at the incremental setting, the file, and we need to see how much data we actually have. And now you can see you have data from 2018 onwards till date. Now this is the environment which is not basically environment which is on deployment pipeline. It's a normal pro environment, and we have done a refresh, and the data as a refresh, we got a new data, we got the complete data because of the initial load settings which we have done for 5-year archiving that has happened. So 5-year archiving setting has made sure we have the 5 year of data. So first load has taken care of that, and that subsequently refresh will take care of the new data. Now what we need to understand, what happens if I republish this file? Will that data be still there, or it will change the things for us whatever we have loaded? And remember, we are in a pro environment. We have PPU where we can separate out the dev and the test, and the test take cares of that. Whenever you migrate a new file, the data did not get deleted in there. That's the beauty about the deployment pipeline, and that's why I always recommend go for PPU or premium workspaces. But that's not there here. So now let's publish the file again. So I'm going to publish the file again, and I'm going to check what's going to happen there. So I go to the test one data workspace, and I say select. It's going to ask me that it's going to impact the files. So one report we already is dependent on this one, this data set, if we replace. So now we have to see, once we republish this, what happens here. Now we come back here, let's refresh this report, or we might have to clean cache and check it out, or go back and open it. But sometime you don't need all those. You just see that, you know, the data is again from 1st January 2019, and that's where you need deployment pipeline, you need premium per user, you need premium workspace. So now what we are going to do, we are going to run the incremental refresh on a test environment, and check it out, this one. And I already have a video on deployment pipeline where I've explained, when you refresh on the test environment, it does not lose the settings. So I'm going to show you the settings of how do we can do a refresh in the deployment pipeline. So let's move ahead with that. Now let's look at it, how it will behave in case we have the deployment pipeline and we have dev and test environment. Then how do we move these incremental settings from one environment to another environment? So let's jump to the Power BI, and what we are going to do here is we are going to publish this file again, but this time I'm going to publish it into a premium workspace. So I go here and I publish it in test PPU, which is my test environment. Let's see, do I have any? No, I'll publish it on demo PPU, which is my demo PPU environments, and I'll say select. So it's going to publish it to a premium workspace, which is premium power user, and we will go ahead and check that out. And then we will see if we have a deployment pipeline, we are going to go and use that. So I'll go here on Power BI service, it's published, and I have this demo where I need to check out the data set by the let's see where we've got it. Demo PPU is the one where we have published it. So if we refresh, you see this incremental setting has come here, and we should have a corresponding content here, incremental settings, and you can see we have data of 2019 only. Now we are not going to do anything here, any setting change here. What we are going to go is we go to deployment pipeline and look where is this deployment pipeline. So what is the development environment is demo PPU, and this is demo PPU test. And if I go here, I can see my incremental data space here, incremental data set here, and I need to migrate that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select the report incremental and the data set, which is also incremental, and I say deploy. So the deployment is happening on right now on deployment pipeline. You can watch my video how do we create a deployment pipeline and how do we do all these things. I'll give you a link there. So now the deployment pipeline it has migrated, and now look at the incremental. So we can go and check it out. Now we can go and check the report basically first of all. And when you go and check this report, you don't see any data here. Once you first load the data, there will be no data here. Okay. Now, first thing we have to go and check, is there a deployment setting required? We click here, we click on the incremental. There is no setting required here. There is no parameter and rule changes which is required here. So we go and say close here. Now we go here on the data set, incremental data set. We click here and we say refresh now. And see it start refreshing here. Now question is there, is it going to refresh from 2019 to 2019 December, or is going to load the complete data? What was the setting? 5 years data, isn't it? So while it is loading the data, just think about it. What you are thinking, is it 1 year or is it 5 years? And I'm going to pause here, and once the data is loaded, we are going to come back and look at it. So the incremental refresh has finished, the initial refresh has finished. Here in this case, we have actually used the refresh now. So that has finished. So how do we check? Like, one thing is that revolving has stopped here, and another thing, you can go to the setting of this data set and you can go ahead and check refresh history, and you will say this on demand refresh has already been completed. So now our test workspace in PP premium per user premium workspace, which we have a PPU license, and a premium workspace we have created there. In that premium workspace, the incremental load has the refresh has finished. We have already refreshed the data in Power BI service, and this is the first time refresh, so it's going to load all the data. We have not configured the refresh periodic refresh here, but we have just refreshed it once. And then now what you see here is the difference. You will observe that it just loaded the complete data. So the load of the complete data has happened for the first time. It's going to load the complete data based on the setting which we have given in the incremental. So just to refresh what settings we have given here, right click here and look at this incremental refresh setting. We have said 24 quarters you have to store. Now how does it make a difference when I say 24 quarters, or let's say 72 months, or let's say 6 years? How does it going to make a difference? How do we understand that? So to do that, let's open SQL Server Management Studio. And in SQL Server Management Studio, one thing you need to do, and this is only possible for those who have the premium workspace and they have enabled the XMLA endpoint. So once you have done that, and that again you can watch my older video on that. So you go here on the open your test workspace, you go here and look at the settings of the workspace, and you go to this premium, and it will take a little bit of time, but it should be able to show you this is a premium workspace. And then you can copy this workspace URL. Once you are done with the copy of this workspace URL, let's look at the SQL Server Management Studio. Still not open. Let it open. It's opening right now. So once it is open, we are going to create an analysis service connection and going to connect with the SQL Server Management Studio. So analysis services, and we give this text workspace, and the option is Azure Active Directory, username, password, or this one. So I'm going to try the username password one. Usually you should be able to use the multi-factor authentication if you have enabled that. I have used the username password, and now I am able to see in the Explorer my analysis services model. And there in the analysis services model, if you see, I can see my tables here, but these are for the database deployment. I need to check it for the incremental, and in the incremental I see only one table, which is sales table, and there are few local date tables. It's because of the I have the date table for which we have the default hierarchies. If I right click on the this table and look at partitions, you see their partitions are created quarterly, and some of these partitions have the data. And this is the difference when you choose year, when you choose quarter, when you choose month in the archiving. That's is going to make the difference, and that's where you can see the partitioning difference here. Now incremental, whenever you see, and for the last quarter you might have different kind of data. Like for the last quarter, I am having the monthly data right now. Monthly refresh is happening. That's why you are seeing the monthly partitions are here. Once that quarter is passed, then we can again have the quarterly partition. So this way, in the back end, the partitioning is getting created. So see, this is the incremental setting which we have done in the dev environment. We published it. We did not change anything there, but we went to the test environment, and automatically it has taken care of our data which is there, which is completely for the 5 year. It has loaded, and it is also loaded. Now we are not scheduling the incremental here on the dev environment. We don't want to disturb whatever data we are publishing. Let it be there. We are only doing it on test and production environment. If there are other variables other than range start and range end, so that you can set up. You can also change your connection settings and all those. So this is how you do the things differently little bit in the environment when you have the deployment pipelines. So we have already shown you, you can refresh your data on the pro environment. You can simply schedule a refresh, and it will keep on refreshing the data. Same way you can schedule a refresh on your test and production environment here, and then it will keep on refreshing data. You don't have to worry about that once it has been loaded. So go ahead and try this out, and do let me know what else you want me to cover in this particular series. Thanks for watching this video. Thank you. Keep watching, keep asking questions in comments, subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon so that you can get notification for new videos. Thank you.